As a sim racer passionate about immersion, I always find myself wanting more, no matter how much they give me. But today, there's a wheelbase out there that might just curb that appetite just a little bit, and it comes from a brand that I never thought I'd be saying could do it. This is Moza's brand new R25 Ultra, a 25 Newton meter wheelbase that's aimed at sim racers who want more power, more detail, and a more high-end feel without the high-end price tag. The Moza R25 Ultra is a 25 Newton meter direct drive wheelbase built around Moza's custom flat wire zero cogging motor. This design focuses on smooth, consistent force output and high efficiency during long racing sessions. At the core of this system is Moza's True Torque technology, which allows the wheelbase to actually measure the torque output rather than just estimating it based on the motor's current. In theory, that should lead to an improvement in fidelity and detail in your force feedback. And then there's the position tracking. The R25 Ultra uses a 21-bit magnetic encoder with a few million counts of resolution. That should allow for extremely precise steering input and consistent performance over time. And for the housing, they primarily use a CNC machined aluminum alloy, giving the base a rigid, durable structure. Mounting options for this wheelbase include the front, side, and bottom mounts for flexibility across multiple cockpit setups. And as you would probably expect, the base uses Moza's updated quick release system and connects directly to the full Moza ecosystem of wheels, pedals, and accessories. And since it's a Moza wheelbase designed for PC, it integrates cleanly into the Moza Pit House software for setup and tuning. So now that we've read the manual, let's talk about why you might want to upgrade to a wheelbase in the 25 Newton meter range. Because if you're running a lower powered wheelbase, you already know from about 10 to 15 Newton meters, that range, you're already not maxing out the wheelbase. Even at 8, you're probably not maxing it out. But where 25 Newton meters really benefits is in the details. The longer you race with it, the less degradation you're going to see in detail because you're not running it at max capacity. The more power you have, the more detail it's able to provide. All of these things play a factor in immersion more so than actual performance. Though I will say, at a certain level, you're going to see a difference in just the ability to be able to feel certain cues to catch slides and things like that. You may see an improvement in consistency. I don't think if you're running a 15 to 20 Newton meter wheelbase, going to 25 is going to necessarily have a big impact on that. But the level of detail that you get is pretty substantial on a 25 Newton meter wheelbase. Now, in terms of the R25 Ultra, that power combined with a new force feedback algorithm is not only detailed, but it provides a lot of power to the haptic effects that are available through the wheelbase. Now, a little bit of backstory. I've been racing with a Club Sport DD Plus, which has full force effects for the last year. I generally like the wheelbase. I think it provides a decent amount of force feedback, and I just like the full force effect. And I know some people don't, but for me, I think it adds a little something extra for immersion. So going to iRacing with the R25 Ultra, I left those settings exactly the same and started the car on the Ultra, and immediately upon revving, my mouse walked right off of the little deck I had for it. You can see just the level of vibration and revving, and you can see that hitting rumble strips is just insanely aggressive with this thing turned up. Now I did dial back those settings a bit and tried to get it to a nice median where I was getting all of the details, not just the more haptic level details. And I have to say, it not only feels natural, but it provides a little bit more of a level of immersion having those haptic effects. And having that higher ceiling means that I can feel the effects a lot more clearly. Ultimately, after I spent some time with the wheelbase, I really wanted to get a good sense of the force feedback characteristics of it. So I disabled the LFE in iRacing and let the R25 stand on its own, essentially eliminating any rumble or anything that would muddy the feedback. That way I could get a cleaner sense of just the overall detail and fidelity of this wheelbase. Out the gate, the response from the R25 Ultra felt accurate. The steering weight, the load buildup, the transitions through corners all lined up with what I would expect from the car. There were no noticeable delays or soft edges in the signal, which basically indicates that the latency and filtering are pretty well balanced. In terms of the detail, the base delivers a pretty solid amount of micro information. You can feel the tires working, the surface texture, the small corrections mid-corner. Overall, the amount of detail that you get is pretty on par for the wheelbase, but I will say, the details do have a little more of a manufactured feel than I like they're just a little more processed. It still communicates the details really cleanly, it's just not as raw race car feel as I prefer. It's not over filtered, but it's also not blurring the lines of raw mechanical feedback. The most important takeaway is this: even without the LFE on, the R25 Ultra can still hold its own. The detail's there, the fidelity is intact, the response times are immediate. It's essentially what you would expect from a high-powered wheelbase that doesn't have to rely on artificial effects to fill gaps in detail. But in my opinion, using the LFE just adds a little more rawness to it, and it just has a little more of a race car feel to it, that like it's a little more gritty, it's a little more aggressive. It just feels a bit more immersive with it than without it. And I know some people don't want all that detail. For me personally, that's just my preference on it. Setting aside the experience of actually racing with the wheelbase, getting it set up was relatively simple. Compared to the DD Plus, it's quite a bit smaller, and as I mentioned early in the video, it has quite a few different bolt options. For me personally, once I took the DD Plus off, I was able to just make a few minor adjustments and bolt the R25 Ultra right on. Unfortunately, I don't have the shaft extension for it, so I wasn't able to put it behind the monitor where I typically would have the wheelbase. But bringing it forward and up because it's a little more compact wasn't necessarily as bad as I expected it to be. And as I touched on in the beginning of the video, the wheelbase is pretty much plug and play with Moza Pit House. Once you connect it to the PC, you just go into the software and you can start tuning. It also includes a slew of pre-tuned options for different cars and titles that you're racing on, so you can start with those as a baseline and then make adjustments from there. And that's something I've actually come to really appreciate about the Moza Pit House software. In testing the wheelbase, the pedals, the shifter, all these things require certain tunes, and having a baseline to start with that matches the discipline and the title that I'm going to be racing on kind of helps just speed the process up, because once I find that baseline, I can start tuning from there rather than starting from complete scratch and trying to research what the best settings are to start out with. It's already got those pre-tuned options, and then if I make adjustments, I can just save them. Now, one other curiosity you guys may have out of consideration for others in your household is noise level. And of course, this is something that we probably talked about a lot more from older wheelbases. Now with the direct drive wheelbases, they tend to be relatively quiet anyways. But the R25 Ultra is absolutely dead silent if you're not using the LFE. For me personally, I run a 160/40 aluminum profile rig. It's about as rigid as you could possibly get it. The LFE turned up, I could still shake the whole house. With it turned off though, you really can't hear anything. And just to give you guys a little bit of an example, in the first clip, the LFE setting was turned off, and as you guys could hear, all you heard was the clicking from my shifters. In the second clip, that was with the LFE turned on, and obviously I kind of intentionally hit a curb and caused a bunch of vibration, but with the vibrations on, you could hear them in this microphone from halfway across the room. And mind you, that's with the settings turned down pretty low. Now, I typically do a majority of my racing in iRacing, so that's where all the B-roll in this video is focused from. But on the side, I did do some testing in the Assetto Corsa titles, and I found that the response time, the fidelity, that stuff was very much accurate and still consistent across all those titles. The details were a little more lacking, and I think that just has more to do with the game itself. I couldn't feel the road textures and stuff the same way, but I think that's just things that aren't supported. And of course, not having LFE options in those games, I did try to go into SimHub, see if there was any optional side tuning for the wheelbase so that I could get those in there. There really wasn't. Of course, I could add the butt kicker, turn that on, and all those feelings that I'm missing come right back into the rig. So it's not necessarily a deal breaker. The most important thing obviously is, the response times and the consistency of the wheelbase. But I did want to share that with you guys in case some of you guys are more focused in any of the Assetto Corsa titles. Now, of course, with the Moza ecosystem, you also get access to a decent variety of wheels, pedals, and other add-ons. But with the basic quick release hub, you can also use third-party wheels as long as they have USB connectivity, or you can wirelessly connect them to the PC. For example, the GT3R wheel that I've been using throughout this video doesn't connect directly to the wheelbase. It connects via USB, and it gives me access to all the buttons and shifters on any wheelbase that I choose to use it on, as long as the wheelbase doesn't require the wheel to be connected. For those of you that might be considering the R25 Ultra as your next upgrade, it really is a great wheelbase in terms of price to power, as long as you have the rig to support it. This really is one of those situations where you need to have a super rigid aluminum profile rig or a really strong tube rig. For me personally, having spent so much time behind the Club Sport DD Plus, I actually really enjoyed the power increase and the low frequency effects of the R25 Ultra. I do wish that it had a little more rawness to it, and I'm hoping as they work through some of the software and I work through some of the tuning, I can try to eliminate some of that smoothing that's taking place and just find a nice happy median for it. Overall, I can't say that the R25 Ultra is the best wheelbase in the 20 Newton meter plus power range, but I do feel like it's one of the best, if not the best, price to performance wheelbase in that range. Now, whether you really need all that torque is up to you to decide. Now, if you are in the market to upgrade your sim rig, be it with Moza or a different brand, make sure you go check out my friends at Apex Sim Racing. I'll leave a link in the description. They've got a big variety of different brands and options available on their website. And if you're shopping Apex branded products specifically, make sure you tell them I sent you by using promo code ThirdWheel5 and get an additional 5% off of Apex branded gear. Now, I've been telling you guys for a few weeks that I'm dying to get back to work on Cup Car 2.0, and I really am. But I also really enjoy working with Apex to be able to test different gear. And right now I'm at war with the AB9, trying to get everything dialed in on it and try to make it function as a sim racing shifter. I don't know how that's going to go, but I'm going to share the full experience with you guys in the next video. After that, there's a few more pieces of gear to test, and then we can get back to the build. Once we get started again, you guys aren't going to want to miss the last part of the Cup Car 2.0 build, so make sure you hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, and until next time, I'll see you guys out on the track.